introduce Jerry, and maybe Dr. T.H. Culhane will be coming in live feed, I'm not sure. But we first made contact with Jerry and T.H. I guess it's been over a year and a half ago or something. They work with an organization called Solar Cities, among other organizations, and one of the things that Solar Cities promotes is a biogas digester, this model. So they came down and helped put this in last July, a year ago in July, I believe it was. And we've been maintaining contact ever since. Jerry now is it Land O'Lakes that?
We're Rosebud Continuum.
Okay,
yes.
yep, in Rosebud Continuum in
If you see Dr. Culhane asked to join, just
where they're
say yes.
doing demonstrating biogas and other technologies and agricultural techniques, I believe. So I'll turn it over to Jerry, and he can discuss the biogas digester.
When we grow up, we want to be like Echo. We're just a small little operation trying to do some of the things they do here. But welcome, my name's Jerry Comelis, and I'm with the Rosebud Continuum, which is a sustainability education center in Land O'Lakes, Florida. We work with schools, particularly the Patel College of Global Sustainability. They're really involved in our efforts, along with public schools, charter schools, private schools. We have 70 students coming on Friday, along with representatives from the United Nations and Blue Communities, and they're going to do a whole global goals talk. How do we showcase what we're doing to solve these global goals at our location? So that's kind of what we'll be talking about on Friday. But today, you get to learn about our baby dragon, or plastic stomach, or whatever you would like to call it. The biodigester is such a great tool, no matter what size you build them. We like this one because you can find these usually anywhere in the world, making it ideal. But it solves three major world problems. And the first problem being food waste. Food waste, which attracts rats and vermin, encourages disease, and not only that, it could be utilized as a waste product to give you liquid treasure instead. And I think Elliot showcased some of that liquid treasure earlier, but every time we feed our dragon, he has to pee, and that liquid treasure can give fertilizer to soil that could be potentially infertile. Maybe the soil where you live, because of erosion or because of deforestation, doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. This could solve that problem. So those are two. You solve the food waste problem, and then you solve the fertilizer problem, the lack of a clean organic fertilizer, which a lot of places in the world have that issue. In Florida, we have sugar sand. And you can't always grow what you want to grow, but this does help. When it comes out, you know, it has a high ammonia content, which is going to attract certain microbes that will turn that ammonia to nitrate, particularly nitrosammonia, which will convert the ammonia to nitrite, and then the nitrospira, which will convert the nitrite to nitrate. And then what we use is we take this same liquid and we put it in our hydroponic system. We don't put anything else. If I was going to put anything else in there, maybe I'd put coconut water. But with just this, our hydroponic systems are growing, the plants are flourishing, and we've never added any chemical fertilizer at all. The third world problem that we solve with this biodigester Solar Cities model, this is the model invented by Dr. T.H. Culhane, who's a Nat Geographic explorer and one of the professors at the Patel College of Global Sustainability. And he has worked with Home Biogas, an Israeli company that was founded based off of some of his innovations. It's not like any of this is new technology, though. I mean, biogas and biodigesters have existed for a long time. But just this particular setup in this model was something that Dr. Culhane put together because he wanted to be able to provide a solution for places in the world where they needed to utilize local resources in order to solve this problem. So, the third problem we solved is the lack of a clean cooking fuel. 5.5 million people die every year because they're breathing in the smoke from cooking fires. The cooking fires in the home, they're breathing the smoke, it gets into their lungs, and they die younger than they would have had they not had smoke in the home. So it solves that problem. So every time we feed our baby dragon, it gives us food, fertilizer for the garden, and gas for our ovens. Now, to explain how the system works, there are three important pipes that you kind of have to stand up and come over here to look at. And we'll take it one step at a time. Because all you see from over there is the gas holder. Now somebody had an apple. Where's the apple? There you go. Bring the apple. Let's feed our dragon. Now at Rosebud, we actually built a dragon's head on the top, and it breathes fire right through its nose every night. Thank you. There you go. Who wants to name this dragon? Does this dragon have a name, Elliot? Not yet. All
What's
right.
your name?
So,
Jerry.
we're going to feed our baby dragon.
Dragon.
Elliot, I apologize, but I stole this from Russ. He has no idea that I took it.
That's all right.
All right, so I took food waste from your lunch today.
Uh-oh, the pigs are not going to be happy.
I mixed a little water with it because it makes it go down a little easier. If you grind it, you'll get gas within 24 hours. But if you put solid food in, it's going to take a little longer, 3 days, even up to 3 weeks, depending on what it is. But here you have today's lunch. Somebody had an avocado. I didn't get one. All right, so here we go. I'm just teasing. Let's pour some food into the dragon. He's so happy. He peed, didn't he? He always does that, man. Yeah, so when we do this with children, we have a little cool fart app too that we push buttons on. And we talk about how the dragon pees and he farts, and we have a little costume that they can wear, and we sing songs. Making biogas is a gas, gas, gas. It's the same gas as the gas that you pass, you know. So we sing all these fun songs, and we do a little rock concert with all these sustainability songs, and we talk about biogas. So what we've just done is we've used food waste that otherwise here would have gone to the pigs, so it would have been utilized, but otherwise in most kitchens in the United States, it's not utilized. So we want to take an otherwise waste product and turn it into something productive. We got fertilizer immediately. Now I can give this dragon a 5-gallon bucket every single day, and it'll give me 1,000 liters of gas. That's quite a bit. You can cook for 2 hours on that. As you can tell, our gas storage container here is pretty full. And when we built that, it was, I mean, this thing was all the way down at the bottom of the water level, and I'll talk about how to put that there. And by the way, I will send you the plans on how to build this yourself. All you have to do is put your name and email on that piece of paper over there. You can take a business card if you like. It's my ministry card. I didn't tell you who I was, but I'm an evangelist with Every Home for Christ. So I serve them out of Colorado Springs, but I represent them here in the state of Florida. But then on the environmental side, I lead the education at Rosebud Continuum and a couple other organizations like Solar Cities, who sponsors this particular product. My master's is in global sustainability, but my bachelor's is in missions, and I just kind of put that all together because as I was on the mission field and I was teaching and I was preaching and I started Bible schools, I noticed that I needed to figure out how to develop livelihoods for people and solve food problems and energy problems and water problems, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. And so I said, let me go back to school, and that's where I met Dr. Culhane, and this whole thing just kind of happened. So glad that we get to be a part of this. So as I've poured that food in there, I've displaced that water onto the opposite end, but you can see this tank is bulging. We paint it black because we want it to stay at body temperature. 98.6 is ideal for the most gas production. If it starts to cool down, you'll get less gas production, and you have to feed it less as a consequence. So what happens here is this gas comes out this tube right here. Everybody do the I love you sign, and you'll never forget how it works. So you feed it. Notice this feed pipe is, actually this is a feed pipe, sorry, feed pipe is higher than the, I just told you wrong altogether. Right? This is a feed pipe. It's higher than the slurry out. So this is higher than that, and that's very important. So that water will overflow, you need this to be a little bit higher. So you feed it here, it overflows here, and then the gas comes out your index finger. We have it hooked up so that the gas travels, and I love this modification that Echo's put on here. They put a scrubber to deal with some of the hydrogen sulfide that could potentially come out. It does come out in trace elements, and if you smell anything in a biodigester, chances are it's the hydrogen sulfide. You don't really smell the methane or carbon dioxide that's produced. It goes through this scrubber, which eliminates some of that hydrogen sulfide, comes out. The tube here travels down into this IBC cutoff, and then it comes out a secondary tube right to the stove. We'll go over there in a little while. So basically this is just an IBC tank that's had the top cut off, and then this IBC tank has the side cut off because it fits better that way. We actually had to bulge these sides up at Sustain Hope in Missouri. Man, they had a guy, I've never seen a guy bend these pipes as good as he did. Oh my goodness. And I mean, but he bulged it out, and that allows momentum for this particular gas holder. So it takes 3 international bulk containers to do this model. However, if this is all you had, you'll still get gas out of it. You could still feed it. You just won't be able to store as much gas. So what happens on a scientific level is you put food in there, and this pipe travels all the way to the bottom of this container. And the opening is at the bottom, and it's kind of cut at an angle, or actually even like a hole, a big hole at the bottom, so that the food will come out. You understand? Does that make sense? Because if it didn't, it would just clog. So we try to cut as big a hole as possible at the bottom. Sometimes it's triangular, square, circular, just whatever you're able to cut. But the slurry pipe has a hole in the middle. It still goes all the way down to the bottom. It kind of rests on the bottom, but the hole for the fertilizer to come out is actually about midway on that pipe. And the reason why is all your protein and your food that the microbes are going to eat are going to be down at the bottom level, and then your fats are going to float up here to the top, and that's going to be the area of activity in this biodigester, where all of the nutrient-rich fertilizer is going to kind of pull to the middle, and that's what comes out here. You have to leave an air opening here on the top, because if you had just a regular elbow, you're going to end up siphoning all the water out. As soon as I fed it, it would have spilled, and then it would have continued, and we'd have a mess right here right now. So you allow that air so that it will stop that siphon. The gas line is put in with a bulkhead fitting, whereas these are uniseals. The bulkhead fitting allows us to be able to have a pipe in the biodigester that doesn't go down at all. It literally is just on the other side of this plastic is where the opening is. Because the gas, of course, is going to be at the top. And we want to be able to capture as much as possible. Some people will put the gas pipe here in the middle where the cap is, and it's okay to do that. We like to reserve the cap as an option for doing maintenance on the biodigester. So we can unscrew that, repair anything that needs to be repaired, or even to clean it out, depending on what you're putting in here. If you're putting things that are more fibrous, you could fill it up. Like grass just never breaks down, but it gives you lots of gas. Weeds, we've got a biodigester reserved just for weeds, and it produces a lot of gas, but it's quite possible that the particulate matter is building up, and eventually we're going to have to clean that out. We also build these out of concrete, really big ones, same concept, but just much bigger. So we talked about how the pipes work and how the water flows and all of that, but the microbes that go to work are similar to microbes that would go to work in a regular compost pile. So you're still going to get the hydrolytic microbes that will convert food waste to a liquid. That's why it's hydro. And then that attracts a microbe called the acetogens, or the acidogenic microbes. And those will convert that liquid food into an acid, like acid reflux. You've had that in your mouth before. It doesn't feel good, right? And that's the same thing that happens, and that's what smells. So if you put food on the pile on the ground, it's going to smell because of the acidogenic microbe has now broken it down to a place where it stinks. But we don't smell it because it's in this IBC tank, anaerobic, no oxygen in there, so the smell doesn't come out. You can put your nose right in there, all you're going to smell is whatever food you just put in. If the food stunk when you put it in, then it's still going to smell. But it might smell like a barn might smell, but it's not an overly powerful smell that would be disturbing. And so we have these in people's houses in New York City. We have them in Pennsylvania. We have them all over the world, and they're functioning safely. So the next microbe that's attracted to that acid are the acetogens. And they're going to turn that acid to vinegar, more of a vinegar-based product. And once it gets to that point, that's where things really start to happen in an anaerobic system that would not happen in an aerobic pile. Because there's no oxygen in here, methanogens are able to flourish. And those methanogens are what is going to finally turn this food waste into methane gas. So what comes out of here, if I were to pull that off, I could actually light it right there, and what comes out is not nitrous oxide, make you laugh or anything. It's methane, right? It's carbon dioxide. People always ask the question, well, if methane's coming out of here, is this thing going to blow up, right? Is it safe? Well, let me tell you, because methane and carbon dioxide come out simultaneously, they keep each other in check. And it's just a natural process that God worked out. So the carbon dioxide wants to put the flame out, and methane wants to burn. It will only burn right there. If I were to turn the gas on and let that flow and light a match up here, it would not catch. Maybe if I got about there, it would catch. But it's extremely safe. If you were to leave propane on in your house and come back later and light a match, very explosive. If that happened with methane, you'd see blue flame shoot across the house, but it'd be like a flash, and it wouldn't be the same result. It wouldn't be like the bomb that people are afraid would happen. It's also trace elements of hydrogen sulfide, and that's why this scrubber's here. Elliot and his team built this, and it has a steel wool inside, which is able to capture that potentially poisonous gas. You know, it's so trace that it's insignificant, but it's worth noting that you can have a scrubber on here if that's something that you're concerned about. Now let's walk over to the kitchen. If you wanted to be able to use a biodigester in conjunction with your backyard grill, let's say I don't want to buy propane anymore, I'm just going to cook on my backyard grill using the food waste from my kitchen. You can do that. But a lot of backyard grills have a little plastic thing that's in the hole that goes into the back of the grill. You've seen the back of your grill possibly, and for propane, there's a little restrictor valve in there. It's like an eye of a needle. And that's because propane's under pressure. So for biogas stoves, you need to pull that out and make sure that if there's any vented areas of the pipe, you can cover that with duct tape. Reynolds wrap would work fine. And then that allows the methane to flow in. The pressure from the water and the bricks give it enough pressure to be able to light the stove. So let's go ahead and give it a try. How about that? Make sure I know how to use a lighter. There we go. Now methane burns very clean. It's a bluish white flame. Dr. Culhane would say, come over here and move your hand across the flame and get baptized by fire. That's what he would say. So if you like to feel it, it's safe. Does anybody smell anything? No? And you can cook. With that much gas, we could cook for the rest of the day. We could barbecue. We could boil water. We could make tea. And it is very safe. There are times when the biogas may not be as productive as other times. If it ends up with too much carbon dioxide, it's still a gas, but it's not a gas that burns as well. There is an easy way you can solve that. It's like getting acid indigestion. So the baby dragon can sometimes get a stomach ache, and so you have to give it some Tums, you know. You give it some calcium carbonate, which is just baking soda. So pour some baking soda in there, a lot, and then put some masa real, that cornmeal. Just put cornmeal in there, and you'll have gas again fast.
That's in the digester.
Yeah, you pour it right into the digester, not into the pot. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. This is just not producing gas. I keep putting cornmeal in here. No. Yeah. So make sure you put cornmeal and baking soda into the mouth of the baby dragon. Another thing that's important to note is that in order for those microbes to develop, you have to inoculate that biodigester. It has to have those properties already existing in there. So the first things we do when we fill a biodigester is we put manure in it. Maybe up to 30% of manure. And we've tried every kind of manure. Hippo manure, elephant, zoo poo, you name it, it's gone into biodigesters and it works. And that's where the methanogens are going to grow out of. That's where those microbes are going to be there. A baby human would get that from the baby's mother through breast milk and colostrum, and they don't even have teeth to be able to eat solid food, but their stomach couldn't handle it either. They have to develop certain microbes to be able to digest solid food. Same with our baby dragon. So here's what we do. We fill it with about 30% manure. For this one we use pig manure, which works really well. They already had a biodigester here with pig manure barrels, and that gave us, I think, gas within a week. I think it was pretty quick because
It was cow manure.
it was cow manure. Okay,
Yeah, but it was within a week.
it was pretty quick. Normally it would take about a month if you didn't have that slurry already in advance. So you put the manure in there, you fill the rest with water. If you do it the other way around, you have the problem like we had in Missouri, where we put the water first because we walked away and ate lunch and didn't realize we left the water on. Came back and tried to put rabbit manure and it went everywhere and we had to drain it. It was fun though. It was a great learning experience. So start with manure first, then the water.
What percent water?
Well, you want to fill it
30% manure, so
and the rest water. Completely full until it starts spilling out the other end. And then you can turn it off. So what you'll do is you will not feed it anything else until it produces gas. So it's just manure and water. And every week you go out, you light a match on the end of the tube. Any gas today? Man, no gas. You come back the next week, no gas. After 3 weeks, you're still not getting gas. You can take actually this tube and blow into it and force some pressure down, sometimes things can get caught in the pipes. And I'll tell you about that in a second, what might cause that. But by forcing the air down, it might release some gas and you can test it again. If you get gas and it flames off, now it's ready to eat solid food. Baby dragon will be happy, and he'll be breathing fire, and he'll be peeing, and the kids will laugh, and it'll be lots of fun. Also in the biodigester, we put surface area for the microbes to live. So that could be rocks, it could be bottle caps. We use bottle caps because there's so many of them. We just throw bottle caps in there. It gives surface area for the microbes. You can use a burlap sack. You can put things in the burlap sack, things that sink, things that float, and then you have something right in the middle of your biodigester. And all those microbes will have a place to live and a place to work, and that'll make your biodigester more successful. So through the 4 microbes that have made this possible, the hydrolytic, acetogenic, and the methanogenic, finally you get a product at the other end for the fertilizer that's high in ammonia, which attracts even more microbes, the nitrosomonas, nitrospiras, and give you the nitrate that you need to be able to grow plants with it. When we first started our aquaponics system, there wasn't enough fish waste in there for the plants to be able to thrive. So we literally inoculated our hydroponic system, or I should say aquaponic system, with slurry from the environment. You missed the stop sign. Yeah. So that allowed the plants to be able to grow immediately, and the plants utilized that nitrate. They cleaned the water, it goes back to the fish, and then that's a circular system. Any questions about biodigesters? Yes, sir.
Is there anything food-wise that you should not put in there?
It's a great question, because in some compost piles, they tell you not to put citrus, not to put meat. But you can put anything in a biodigester except small children. I don't recommend it. If a rat goes in there, that's okay. He'll just become part of the system. Don't worry about that. You can put meat, you can put citrus. It'll digest all of it. Yes?
You said rabbit, the poop. I'm thinking rabbit poop because that's what we did.
Yeah.
You put the poop in the water and then you wait for flames. Are you putting more poop in during that time or just nothing?
You're not. But let's say after a month, you're still not getting anything. You can add more manure.
Okay.
And adding more manure will not hurt the system at all. Even though we are already producing gas and fertilizer, I still add manure from time to time to the biodigester because I believe it adds value to the fertilizer that I'm going to get on the other end. It doesn't matter for the gas because those microbes are already there, but it's giving the system more microbes, and it's also making my fertilizer a product that I think is going to be better. If you measure and try to discover what was in your slurry, in your biodigester, it could be very different than somebody else's slurry somewhere else because it depends on what you're putting into it. But there's definitely going to be some ammonia that comes out of it. The NH4 is in the early phase of what comes out of that is what's going to attract those other microbes that convert it to nitrate. We've let the slurry sit in IBC containers for months, still used it. The ammonia count was low, but it still worked in the hydroponic systems. Go figure. It still worked. We're still growing food. So it's a nice solution for fertilizer. Yes?
Okay, so, and I just blanked on my question.
So he has one too. Go ahead.
I was thinking about like human manure, like as you say, like any animal manure can work, but also like human. Like what would you say about this too?
Yeah, human manure works. It's just not always socially acceptable depending on what country you're in. So in some countries, they don't have an issue with that. So yeah, human manure works. People are concerned about pathogens and disease, but that operates at such a high temperature, and once the microbiology goes to work, all that is broken down, and I would say you're pretty safe on anything with that.
How fresh does your manure need to be? A little age, is that a problem?
It needs to be fresher so that it has microbes. It could still work if it's older, but the fresher the better.
Okay.
The slimy, juicy ones. Yes.
So what about like if the liquid is urine versus like water? That was my second.
We talked about that a little bit in a session yesterday. Urine does work already by itself in a garden, so it would work in a system like this as well. And it already has ammonia in it, so it wouldn't hurt the system. Some people put a biodigester underneath their compost toilets and use it like a septic tank. The only difference is they're pulling the gas out of it and utilizing it for something else.
I think there's a delegate here from EMI, and I think they have done a couple projects of biogas digesters with sanitation, and he might be a good resource to reach out to. And I know that one issue about using any sort of digestion, anaerobic digester with human waste especially, is you still do need to be careful about the pathogen load coming out the effluent. So there's different ways to manage that, but you certainly would want to make sure that if you're applying that onto food crops, it's not fresh vegetables, or it goes directly onto the soil. Once it gets into the soil, the microbial life of the soil will break that down eventually. But the other way to do it would be incorporate the effluent into a thermophilic, a hot composting method. It reaches at the hot composting threshold would be somewhere around 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's pretty hot, yes.
Sustained at at least a day or two at 160. If it's lower, it has to sustain it longer. The lower temperatures has to be sustained for longer days to kill off those pathogens. But I wouldn't. We generally, just out of due diligence, don't want to encourage anybody to assume that the effluent coming out of there is pathogen free.
Yeah,
Because that's not necessarily the case with anaerobic digestion.
I think it's a great answer. There's a much better answer than mine. This is usually at 98.6 degrees, so it's not going to be as hot as he said. If we need. Any other questions? Now you can build one of these in your backyard. You can build it on your farm. You can build a community version. I can send you the plans on how to build it. You can just write your email on that paper right there. I'll be glad to send them to you. I would have printed them, but it's like a 25-page document because it has pictures and stuff, so it would have just been too much printing. So just put your email. I won't spam you. That'll be the only thing I send you unless you ask me a question. Yes?
What about just on CO2? You're trying to maximize methane.
Yeah.
Right? What if I just want CO2 to minimize
Well, then you don't need an anaerobic system. I would think you'd be able to get that some other way. I mean, I imagine.
I still want to pipe it out. So I just want
It's a good question. What do you think, Elliot?
So one of the ways we've just been experimenting with using CO2, flushing the seeds with CO2 for disinfection, disinfesting them, replacing oxygen with CO2. One of the ways that they've been doing that is just, even a simple way, although it takes yeast, but there's other processes that you can make CO2, but yeast and water will make CO2, the gas that's released is CO2. I don't know on a large scale if one of those processes might be a little better. Methane released into the atmosphere, methane is actually one of, like they say, it's one of the leading contributors of greenhouse gases. It's one of the most dangerous of the greenhouse gases. So we don't, it's fine to light it off and let it go using the methane, but we don't generally want to be just producing the methane and letting it volatilize, go out into the atmosphere. So if you did it this way, I encourage burning off the methane somehow.
Yeah. That's the first time I heard that question. Yeah.
So what about like a pressure system? Like I see water in this tank, and like all kinds of twigs coming up over. Like, why is
The bricks are here for ballast, just to keep it balanced. Not necessary, really. But I don't want my gas to escape out of the bottom either. You can see it's got about that much farther to go before it clears the top here. The bricks just help hold it down. And it'll eventually go down as you utilize the gas. But we've also pumped the gas into just air mattresses that you get from the department store. And what's great about like a twin or a queen size air mattress, you can get a just big piece of plywood and put it on top of it, and that's usually heavy enough to give you pressure to push the gas out. And then because it's a flat surface, you can add more weight to it. And the more weight, the higher the pressure and the bigger the flame that comes in out the other end of it. So it's a bigger fart. Just saying. All right. Anybody else? Great. Well, if you can go to either rosebudcontinuum.com or .org, solarcities.eu. You can find out all about this. And then the Facebook page for Solar Cities is a great resource, because if you have a question while you're building your biodigester, there's thousands of people in that network. You write your question right there in the Facebook blog, and somebody will usually respond to you relatively quickly and answer any questions you have. Did Dr. Culhane ever join? Okay. Dr. Culhane is building